The juice is loose. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back for my review of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. We're going to do half non-spoiler, half spoiler, just because there's surprisingly a lot in this movie that I was not expecting. Like, the trailers do not really show you a whole lot. There's a lot of twists and turns and surprises and characters that I didn't think would be involved here. Whole storylines that I didn't know even existed do exist in this movie and are kind of crazy. Now, this, of course, is a sequel to the original Beetlejuice film from back in the 80s. So 36 years later, we are finally getting Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. And I will say, just right off the bat, personally, I don't think it's as good as the original, which part of that also is due to nostalgia. But for the most part, I did really enjoy this film. I walked out of this with a smile on my face, having had a great time. Definitely, there's a few issues with it. Some issues that other people are having that I'm not. Just some more broad strokes that we'll talk about, mainly in the spoiler section. But I'll let you know when we get there, so you haven't seen the movie yet. We'll talk non-spoilers first. And I just want to say, first of all, it's just so cool just to return to the world of Beetlejuice. Personally, I'm not really a huge fan of Tim Burton. Beetlejuice is really the only film of his that I really enjoy or really like. I mean, his Batman movies are all right. But other than that, not a huge fan of Tim Burton. But Beetlejuice, whatever he does with this, I like it. And especially seeing a movie like this in a day and age where everything is big CGI action sequences and everything, really bringing back the practical effects for this film was, I think, really essential to the charm of that original Beetlejuice film, and that comes along with the sequel as well. So I thought that was really great to see. With that, a lot of the comedy is here. There's some really, really funny moments. A lot of it being with the practicalness of this film. So really funny, really laugh out loud. Definitely, I think it's PG-13, as it should be. Because, there's some quite Beetlejuice is a character. He's a pervert. So there's that. And obviously, I would say this is definitely, we're living in a time where a lot of kind of legacy films are getting sequels and characters being brought back and everything. And I definitely think this is one of the better attempts at that, because sometimes that type of approach doesn't always work out. I think this was really done well. But one of the things, obviously, of course, they always do in legacy sequels is they try and recreate certain aspects of the original film. And one of the things I just wanted to mention right off the bat is, obviously, one of the most iconic parts of the original Beetlejuice is the musical sequences with Banana Boat, the Deo song, and Shake Sonora. So obviously iconic parts of that first movie. So they try and recreate that and do some other, there's like one or two musical sequences here as well, which I thought were funny, but definitely the songs chosen are nowhere near as iconic as the ones from the previous film. And especially one that's used towards the end that I'll just say is at a wedding scene is, it's just a little too long. It's like, I looked up the song on Spotify and I was like, holy cow, that is a long song. And you kind of feel it. But it was still fun. And obviously Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice is just absolutely fantastic. He is the highlight of this film. Again, just like the first film, less than 20 minutes of screen time for the actual character of Beetlejuice. So I really enjoyed that aspect. I was really kind of nervous about that, especially because kind of, obviously Beetlejuice is sort of the main selling point with this sequel, bringing him back. But it works really nicely. It doesn't feel weird. It feels very planned out and works for that character. And obviously Michael Keaton is just great as ever. He slipped right back into this role. The mannerisms, the comedy, everything about it, just absolutely perfect. Obviously getting Winona Ryder back is great. Catherine O'Hara, my God, she was amazing. She also really just slipped right back into that character. So I really enjoyed that. And obviously we have our new cast members as well, which I will say, obviously Jenna Ortega, she was great. She was one of the leads of this film. But some smaller characters like Monica Bellucci's character and Willem Dafoe's. I mean, I like their characters and I like the idea of their characters, but really, if you took those characters out of the movie and those storylines, nothing would be missing. It'd be a fine movie. It might even be a better movie, because I will say one of the problems with this film is that there's just too much going on, too many stories at the same time. And this is something that in the marketing for this film, Michael Keaton said he really loved about this sequel, is that the story is better than the original. So I was really intrigued by that, because looking back, I was like, okay, I mean, yeah, the story in the original film is fairly simple. So they definitely take it to the next level with this sequel, but a little too much. Like, there's too much story, too many storylines, to the point where certain aspects of this could have been almost two different movies. Which kind of got me thinking, like, are we going to get a Beetlejuice 3, which we'll talk about more at the end of the video in the spoiler section. But yeah, just want to mention that, like, I mean, it is kind of unfortunate, because obviously Monica Bellucci and Willem Dafoe, iconic actors. It's great to have them here, and they both do a great job, but it's just their characters aren't super necessary for this story. But definitely, I think this is a fun movie that'll get you in the Halloween spirit. It definitely feel like it came out a little too early, beginning of September. But this is a nice way to kick off spooky season, I'd say, for sure. And now we're going to take a little detour and head off into the spoiler section of this video. So if you have not seen the movie yet, then probably don't watch this part of the video. So I wanted to, like I said before, there were a lot of characters that showed up that I didn't expect, or storylines that I didn't expect, such as Charles Dietz, because obviously we knew going into this that the movie started off with his funeral, mainly because of the actor and his criminal record, and just how the guy is very frowned upon, to say the least. If you don't know the background on that, Google it for yourself. I mean, literally just look up the guy and it'll be there for you. So like I said, we already knew the character was going to be dead going into this. So I really didn't, I mean, obviously it makes sense, because like Beetlejuice is all about the afterlife and all that, but I didn't expect to actually see the character. Now, obviously it's not actually Jeffrey Jones in the role, and it was kind of funny how they explained, like, to not have his face is like, oh, he got his head bitten off by a shark, so he's just walking around without a head. So I thought that was interesting and kind of funny, but not, I didn't feel it was really necessary. I mean, maybe if they just did the one scene at the end, obviously Delia dies in this movie, which I thought that was done really nicely. She went out in a very Delia fashion. I really loved her character and how her art, she became famous and all that stuff. If they just had like the one ending scene of her reuniting with him, I thought that would have worked. But the whole having him walking around in the afterlife, I didn't feel was super necessary. And the claymation, like, it was cool to have claymation involved here, but even though you weren't actually looking at Jeffrey Jones's face, it was still just a reminder of him and that horrible person. So that I felt wasn't necessary to be involved here. Now, when it comes to the character of Astrid, of course played by Jenna Ortega, there's a couple interesting aspects to her. Like, for example, her storyline with Jeremy. I really loved that. I really loved how that was done, because, you know, honestly, I was really rooting for them. I was like, oh, nice. It's a nice little love story, a little romance aspect to this film. That's great. And then the way the plot twist was revealed, that not only he was a ghost and that he was dead, but he murdered his parents and all that. So I really loved that. I thought that was great. It did feel like it kind of came to a little bit of an abrupt ending. But that, of course, transitioned us into more of a focus on her father being dead, which, when at first it was said that Lydia couldn't sense him or couldn't see him, I thought it was just going to lead to, especially after one of them mentioning that, oh, his body was just never found, I thought that was going to lead to, oh, he was alive the whole time. No, he was dead. But I really liked that aspect. I thought that was a cool way of going about doing it, kind of taking an aspect of Beetlejuice the musical and incorporating that in here, just in a little bit of a different way. So I thought that was pretty cool to see. Now, going back to Monica Bellucci's character of Dolores, which, again, obviously she did a great job, and I think it was a really cool idea to bring back that loose thread of the first film of when Beetlejuice was marrying Lydia the first time, and he brought out the ring, and he was like, "Oh, she meant nothing to me, honey." So bringing back that character's ex-wife, I thought that was really cool, and her being sort of the villain of this movie. But again, it just didn't really fit into this film. Like, if they did a Beetlejuice 3, I would have saved it for that. Because it just, again, it was a cool character and it was a cool storyline to do, but it just felt so rushed, and she was absent for most of the film. You know, she had this big, great introduction at the beginning, and we got the Beetlejuice origin story, which is another thing. Like, it was cool, but especially with how quickly it was done, I don't really feel like we needed a Beetlejuice origin story, but whatever. So yeah, and then also her ending. I mean, I did think it was funny setting her up with Rory. That was pretty cool. But also just like literally she showed up and then she was defeated. Like it was very rushed towards the end. So yeah, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is out now in theaters, and again, I know I just talked about like a lot of negatives, but I swear I still really enjoyed the film. I'd give it like 7, maybe 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was great, a great sequel to Beetlejuice. Obviously, the first one, specifically for nostalgia reasons, I still prefer, but I definitely go back and see this in theaters again, especially closer to Halloween. I think this is a great way to kick off spooky season. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about Beetlejuice Beetlejuice? Does it live up to the hype? Is it as good as the original? And do you think maybe could we get a Beetlejuice 3? Is there more story left for that, or did they shove it all into this one? So let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I keep up to date on everything that goes on in the movie life.